Could we bring everything to order, please? Hello, good morning. My name's Lee Zia. I'm the lead program director for STEP, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to another Grantees meeting. Last time we were in this hotel several years ago, we shared space for part of the time with the Premier of China. Some of you may have remembered that. He was here to visit the new president at the time. There was some flap about whether there was supposed to be a state dinner or something like that, and they ended up, a state dinner only happens at the White House, so whatever dinner they had here was very fancy, and there was a part of the hotel we weren't allowed to go to after a certain point in the day. But it was all very neat to kind of just be hanging around and watching. So I'm sorry, we couldn't arrange that this time. We couldn't even arrange the cherry blossoms. That's next week, we think. But we did arrange for no snow, so we dodged a bullet last week. I have a couple of things I want to do before I introduce Joan Farini-Mundy, who will have some welcoming remarks and opening remarks as well. Just first, a couple of shout-outs. The real practical thing, those of you who are in your first year, who have just been awarded last fall, well, I hope you know that there's an annual project monitoring survey that's done by the STEP program. And we have an outside contractor who helps us with that. That's ICF International, and some of their folks are here, and they'll be out in the lobby area and the help desk. That's Diana Izmukapatova. I've been practicing that. And her colleagues. They're great, and I urge you to connect with them as soon as possible to get yourself started on that. Some of them in the third-year review that happened yesterday, and then others are staying on and helping out in various sessions today and tomorrow. Certainly want to recognize ASEE and their folks, Patty Greenwald and her team, who've done a fantastic job with the logistics, and they're out in the front as well. And then certainly Dan Udovic and Scott Grissom and their organizing team, their advisory group, to really put together the meat of the program. I have a request for you, and that is the next time you're in this room, is to try to sit with some people who are not from your institution. One of the purposes of a meeting like this is to network and to learn and find out other people who are sharing the same sorts of challenges that you're involved in, and a great way to do that is to take advantage of these meetings. That's one of the primary reasons they're here. Certainly this meeting, its theme is identifying best practices, and one way to do that is to talk to other people and share those. So I then want to just turn to a quick introduction of Joan Farini-Mundy, who will have some opening remarks. Joan is our Assistant Director for the Directorate for Education and Human Resources. I've known Joan for a long time. She's very influential on my own career. I met her when I became an assistant professor of mathematics at the University of New Hampshire. Joan was just 2 doors down from me, and I learned a huge amount. We wrote grants together, and she was partly responsible for my even coming to NSF in the first place as a rotator. So I thank her for that. Joan has a distinguished career in mathematics education and has been our assistant director since 2010. And so we're delighted to have her here, and I'll turn it over to her.
Good morning, everybody. and thank you, Lee, for the nice introduction. Lee's energy is exactly at the same level as it was those many years ago. We won't say how many years ago, when he was a brand new junior faculty member at New Hampshire. It's great to work with him. I'd also like to thank all of our NSF staff who've been so diligent in getting this meeting ready and in working with all of you as you continue your outstanding activities and your projects. So thanks to our NSF staff. But the biggest thanks really do go to you. This kind of a gathering, looking out at everybody, just continues to remind me, at least, and I suspect my colleagues as well, about the really important work that we're able to do through your great ideas, through your great energy, through your creativity, and through your commitment to improving STEM education in lots of different venues with lots of different practices. And so we'll come back around to that later, because I have some challenges for you in terms of what you do above and beyond the great work that you're already doing with our investment. I don't think I need to say to this group what an exciting moment it is for undergraduate STEM education right now in the country. There has been both commitment across the states and across the federal government to the importance of focusing on improving STEM education generally and improving STEM education at the undergraduate level quite particularly. And you've seen reports coming from the government, the President's Council of Advisors for Science and Technology, quite an influential report on undergraduate education that came out in the last year or so that takes a look at the key strategies that undergraduate education in STEM might need to undertake in order to really retain students who come to you interested in STEM and who we would like to see enter the STEM workforce, or be prepared to be in what we might call the STEM support workforce, the folks who work around the STEM domains and who are critical to advancing this area generally. In fact, there's a series of priority goals and performance goals across government that are focused on undergraduate STEM education, including a cross-agency goal that's focused on the administration's commitment to building the STEM workforce with 1 million new STEM graduates coming in the next few years. And really, when the government decides that they want goals like that, what they're actually looking at are the programs that you all are engaged in. Will you be able to increase the numbers, frankly, I think is a major question and challenge for all of you. And so the STEP program is really often listed as a centerpiece program for contributing to these kinds of goals. We're very pleased to have the special funding focus in this year's STEP announcement, the Graduate 10K Plus. It's a piece of this effort to see if we can boost numbers. It's a cooperative activity among the President's Jobs Council, the National Science Foundation, and Intel and General Electric. And so we're very pleased to have that call this year, focusing on computer science and engineering in particular. I wanted to say a little bit about the directions that we are emphasizing in education and human resources and talk about how and why STEP is actually at the center of all of this. If you're following our materials and watching our, for example, our fiscal 13 budget request, which no doubt you found riveting when you read that multi-page document when it came out last spring, you'll see that we have been working to frame the investments that we have in EHR around really 4 different emphases. And these are the 4. And we could have a long debate about whether this is the right set of 4. We've had these debates internally, and we'll expect that they'll shift and morph and evolve over time. But anyhow, a focus on STEM learning. Very clear, sharp focus on what can we do to improve the learning of our students, both in classrooms and outside of school, and how might we invest in ways that further that cause. STEM learning environments, and you might already guess, well, what's the first issue here? Why aren't those completely intertwined? And perhaps they are. But in any case, STEM learning environments, and this is a place where I think STEP, of course, is really quite central. What conditions are we creating for our students in classrooms, in departments, in courses, in online environments, in universities and in colleges? What environments are we creating so that students have the opportunity to maximize their learning and understanding of STEM? And of course, being the National Science Foundation, we're always interested in how innovative are those environments? What are we learning that's new? I love the focus on best practices for this meeting, because what that pushes us all to do is to say, this probably probably isn't just business as usual. This is finding new ideas, new techniques, new strategies for keeping students engaged and helping them learn. So STEM learning environments. The third focal area for us is broadening participation and institutional capacity, with our strong commitment to diversity, to the need to bring in all students from all groups within the country, particularly groups that have been underrepresented in STEM. We need to build environments, build institutional capacity that takes into account the fact that we need everyone to have an opportunity to engage in STEM. And some of the data that you all know well that have to do with attrition rates in STEM, the students who come to you and to our institutions interested in STEM, but then who fall away, who don't stay in those programs, those rates are seriously challenging for all, and they're especially challenging for groups that are traditionally underrepresented in STEM. So here again, we count on the STEP program to find the very best ways to keep all of these students engaged and effectively involved in STEM. So then the fourth area is the development of the STEM professional workforce. This is a little bit new for us. The first three should sound roughly familiar. We've always had these commitments. We're just trying to talk about them a little differently. STEM professional workforce mostly has been interpreted at NSF as a focus on graduate education, or at least that's a very visible focus. So programs like the Graduate Research Fellowship Program, IGERT, others, those are clearly aimed at the PhD level workforce. However, I don't want to downplay at all our emphasis on all levels and aspects of the workforce. So for example, the preparation of teachers for STEM is a critical part of the workforce preparation. The preparation of technicians at the two-year college, community college level, also critical for the STEM workforce. And I know that many of your projects intersect with these levels. And then finally, the notion of what happens even before the undergraduate years as preparation for the workforce, as engagement of students in pathways that might take them to the workforce. That also needs our serious attention. And some of that, of course, has to do with outside of school learning and informal environments. So we have these four areas, and what we are pushing for is to build a coherent body of a coherent body of knowledge, really, not only best practices, but evidence-based practices that we can all begin to synthesize and share and offer essentially as a contribution beyond the institutions that we are able to fund. So you all, with your fantastic ideas, you're a pretty small fraction of the places that would like to have funding to do this good work. And so we have to think about collectively as a community, how do we, in a sense, bottle or capture what it is that we are learning, what you are learning in your great projects in ways that can then be made available to others for them to adapt, to replicate, to learn from. They need to learn from your dead ends, too, the places where you start down a blind alley and you wind up with a problem, or maybe that never happens here. We haven't had a good tradition really in education necessarily of being able to share those findings as well, but we need to because we have to be strategic in investments. So in addition to your focus on best practices for this meeting, which is terrific, I challenge you also to think about a second related question, which is how will the rest of the country, the rest of the institutions, even other parts of your institutions who may not be involved in your projects directly, how will they learn in ways that are useful to them about what you're all doing? How do we learn from you about what's useful and impactful so that we can make the case for these kinds of continued investments? So there's a challenge beyond doing a great job with your project in your institution or the institutions that you're engaged with, and that is to share what you are learning, to really engage in research about what you are doing, figuring out what the critical elements are or what the sort of special key ingredients are in what makes your work successful, and really communicating across various modes, both through publication as well as the kind of dissemination that happens in meetings like this. But we need a record of what you're doing, and we need to be able to argue that we are learning from the STEP program. So as if it's not enough work to do a great job in a project individually, I'm asking that we step up the pace really with publication, with research reports or evaluation reports or expository discussion about what's coming out of your work, and make sure that we see that. Make sure your program officers know if there's been a piece in your local news, if there's been a paper that you've had published that talks in part about your STEP work. Keep us posted on all that, because then collectively we really can demonstrate how programs like this are improving STEM education for all and building the workforce in the way that we're so concerned with doing. So anyhow, the program looks terrific. I know that you're all excited. It's probably just as well that the cherry blossoms aren't out, because then you get to just stay here and confer with each other. Have a wonderful meeting, and again, congratulations on all of your good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. When Dan asked me to give the keynote presentation, I was naturally excited. And I started talking about, well, I'm doing some interesting work with peer instruction in my Computer Science 1 class using clickers. This year I started flipping the classroom, so having some videos before class so students can do active learning inside the class. I'm PI on my campus, where we're doing a survey of 300 STEM faculty to find out why do they choose various instructional practices and what are the barriers to do that. And Dan says, well, that sounds great, Scott, but we actually already have a keynote speaker. I wanted you to speak before the keynote speaker. So I updated my title slide. A little disappointed, but regrouped, got excited again. Opportunity to probably have breakfast with the keynote speaker, learn more about him, a chance to deliver a poignant yet exciting introduction that would result in the audience standing ovation as he takes the stage. And Dan said, sounds great, Scott, but we actually already have somebody to introduce the keynote speaker. Okay, Dan, so what exactly do you want me to talk about? Had to update my title slide again. So I feel like the flight attendant at the beginning of the flight, trying to get your attention to tell you these mundane details. So what do you need to know today? You need to know how to connect to the wireless if you haven't already. We've got a few late-breaking announcements to share with you. I'm going to tell you about our social media strategy, tell you most importantly about our stepcentral.net that we've been promoting quite a bit, orient you where you are in the hotel and where you'll be trying to go, and then just give you a quick overview of what's going to happen today. So wireless, if you're in any of the meeting rooms over the next 2 days, complimentary. You should be able to connect to Marriott conferences, at least that's what it was last night. The signs around the room say all Marriott, so whatever works. Conference code PSA 13. If you're a hotel guest, they may not have explained this when you checked in, but if you're registered with the hotel, Wi-Fi is free in your room. When you connect, it might explain that are you agreeing to a $12.95 charge? Say yes, but it won't show up on your bill. So hopefully that will be good for you. And in fact, if you've already connected in your room, in my case, when I came down here, I was already connected. So hopefully it will be fairly seamless for you. Many of you are presenters between today and tomorrow. I've got some late breaking news for you, so please pay attention for at least the next 3 minutes. We had prepared you to expect that in the meeting rooms there would be a data projector and a flip chart, but no computer. If you wanted a PowerPoint presentation or other kind of multimedia, you should bring your own laptop. Wasn't required. We just found out last night that we are providing a computer. It doesn't necessarily change your plans. If you plan to brought your computer, you can still bring it and swap out to the projector. If it's more convenient to you to put your presentation on a thumb drive, bring that in, feel free to do so. Or once again, don't feel compelled to use one at all. Certainly in the case of the panels, we weren't expecting to use computers anyways. In each room, we've invited 1 or 2 scribes. So those will be people with their laptops, and they have a template to complete as they're listening to the presentations, where they're going to write down all the best practices, the takeaways, sort of highlight whatever that was. And we ask you scribes, so if you're a scribe now, please pay attention for the next 2 minutes. After you've completed your work, please update it to STEP Central or upload it to STEP Central. See a little more instructions about that in a moment. But the goal then is if you're the 3 or 4 competing presentations today that you want to go to, the one you can go to, great. The other 2 or 3, eventually there might be some notes posted about that, including maybe presentation notes as well. So we'll see where that shows up on STEP Central. Of course, we are hip. We have a social media strategy. We have a Facebook page. We have a Tweety account at STEP Central. If you want to tweet about this event sometime over the next 2 days, please use the hashtag up there, NSF STEP. Actually, tweets, well, let's see, let's first talk about Justin Bieber. It turns out Justin Bieber has the most followers in the world at just under 36 million. Well, I was pleased when I first looked at this slide. It looks like STEP Central is a close second with 61 followers. But then I realized I misread that, and it's actually 25 followers. And then STEP Central, this non-being, is actually following 61 other folks. So tweets is actually one of our measurements of how active is our community of practice. A minor measure, but a measure nonetheless, something that we can count. So it would be our quantifiable data rather than our qualitative data. And so our goal this year is to double the number of tweets from last year. Excuse me? No, last year we had 1 tweet. And frankly, that was just Dan checking his iPhone to see if it worked. If you don't know this, turn to your math major. So we explained that the conference is almost paperless. So when you checked in, you got 2 documents, I believe, maybe 3. This is the agenda, which is sort of like the syllabus for the next 2 days. So I'd recommend you pull that out for the next few minutes, if you can. So if you only have a limited few pages in front of you, where do you find the abstracts for the sessions? How do you pick among the 12 concurrent sessions based only on the title? Maybe. But normally we might be used to seeing a brief abstract on what it's going to be talking about. Well, since you all have free Wi-Fi, and most of you probably have some kind of device or Wi-Fi enabled device, we want to encourage you to go to STEP Central. So this is the premier location for all STEP PIs. StepCentral.net, by the way, not .gov, not .com, not .org, StepCentral.net. And there are a number of documents available and features available, particularly for the meeting. But Dan asked me to also remind you this is a great way to disseminate your work as well. So in theory, all of you PI projects or all the projects have a location on STEP Central. And so you can post documents associated with your project. So if you've got some paper publications or some surveys that you wrote or any other kind of information you think worthy of sharing with STEP Central or the STEP community, then please figure out how to do that. But for today, most importantly, you want to follow the link at the top for STEP meetings. And from there, one of the options will be 2013. Which takes you to the homepage of STEP 2013, and you can see along the left-hand side, you can bring up the agenda, breakout sessions, posters, we'll see those in a couple of moments. In particular, the breakout session link will take you to the one-page long scrollable page of all 36 sessions. We have 3 sessions, 2 today, 1 tomorrow, 12 parallel sessions, total of 36, you do the math. And each one here are your opportunity to see the abstracts. Now let's suppose the abstracts are not enough for you, or you're in the sessions today or tomorrow, and something exciting is happening, or a conversation breaks out spontaneously, and you want to continue that conversation. Well, STEP Central has that for you as well. Off to the right of each session, you'll see a green button that takes you to a working group. Now, working group terminology on STEP Central is a special interest group. So people that are rallying around a common cause, peer-led team learning, bridge programs, faculty development, whatever that happens. So each of the 36 presentations today have been linked back to one of these existing working groups, depending on how well it makes sense. So by clicking on that link, it takes you to a common area for that topic. Now, for that topic, for each of the 36 sessions, we have created for you a discussion group for that session. So in this particular category that I brought up, I've scrolled down some so we can't see the topic title. There's a particular working group, so click on that, and then you can post comments and see comments that have happened about that. We encourage presenters to do this ahead of time, so we gave them your mailing list, your mailing if you attended their session or plan to attend their session, and encourage them to try to get you online first and start a conversation to sort of inform what they might speak about. So we'll see how effective that has been. Back to the home page of STEP 2013. Now you want to go to posters this afternoon. Well, there's 2 poster sessions. And in front of you, the second document that you have, you don't really have to pull it out at the moment, is the poster organizer. Posters are organized in the meeting room itself by content area called a cluster. Once again, bridge programs and peer-led learning and learning communities and those sorts of topics. This printed document has 3 different ways to look up where your poster is, by institution, by author, and then by cluster. So you will be able to navigate, but there are no abstracts. So you really want to learn more about the poster before you go there, or maybe next week you realize you missed the opportunity to visit this particular poster session. So on STEP Central, go to the posters link, and uploads, and I will warn you that this page sort of loads slowly, so I would not ask all 300 of you to do that simultaneously right now. Lots of PDFs come up here. So these are small PDFs of all the posters, and including the abstracts, and you can then filter or search by these using any number of activities, such as by topic or cluster, by the institution type, for your school, to your school. The disciplinary focus, want to take a look at computer science or engineering or biology, and then finally keywords. So you can narrow down your search further and further until you got the 2 or 3 or 4 posters that you really want to make sure that you see today. So now let's figure out where you are in this hotel. Some of you may have already discovered, a little confusing, perhaps. So we're all agreed that we are starting here, and then where do we go from here? Now this is why I wanted you to bring out your syllabus. On the back is the map of this floor, and I recommend you pull it out and orient yourself, because I'm going to point out a few places. So right now we are in this area, supposedly. I think I misoriented a little bit, but close enough. And then from here, when we leave out the back door, is where the coffee breaks will be. So get some nourishment there before you go on to the first sessions. 12 rooms, 12 meetings, 12 meeting rooms scattered throughout a number of locations. So a few of them are going to be a little harder to find, so I want to point those out to you. That one's probably the hardest. That is, Madison. So if you're looking to go to Madison, recognize that the really best way to go about that, or the only way I've discovered, is you go down this hallway. So this is where you were for breakfast. So really here we are on this, go backward. Here we are really on the left-hand side of this room, and I learned how to do animation in PowerPoint last night, so bear with me. So off to the right there's this, okay, just screw it. So the blue ones are the meeting rooms. The yellow one is the bathroom. But the 2 I wanted to point out are the Madison in the back right corner there. A little hard to get to. You have to go down a hallway and sort of turn a corner around. And then McKinley in the middle of that middle blue dot, sort of a little tucked away as well. As you go back out the back door, you do the coffee break, leave, you see, it's just not going to work. All right. That's where it'll be for lunch, where you were for breakfast. All right, so that's this floor. Now, unfortunately, 3 of the meeting rooms are not on this floor. Those are the Lincoln rooms. So as you identify one of the 12 sessions that you're going to, and if one of them is Lincoln, this is where you really have to pay attention. All right, show of hands, why are we paying attention? Looking for the Lincoln room. The Lincoln room is 2 levels down. Now, if you can hear me and you're following along still, I want you to hold up 2 fingers. Now, look at your neighbor, and if they are not holding up 2 fingers, explain to them the importance of the following announcement. 2 levels down, just below us, escalators and stairs combination, will take you to the exhibition hall. Now, in the exhibition hall is where the posters are. So you will look there and say, no, that must not be the right place. That's the posters. It is the right place. So in the exhibition hall, it's primarily posters, but if you go into the exhibition hall, what? There's 3 more Lincoln meeting rooms there. So go into the poster session, and they're off to the left. So remember, if you're looking for Lincoln. And then after those sessions, we do the posters, which will be downstairs as well. So you're either down 2 levels or you're up 2 levels for the entire conference. So session 1 after the break will be a combination of workshops and panels. All the sessions are. So panels tend to be 3 unrelated PIs from different projects that have been thrown together about a common topic. And about the first 30 minutes, they will be giving opening presentations about novel things that they are excited about in their project. And then the second half is open up for conversation, question, and answer. The other sessions are called workshops, and you don't necessarily see this in the title, so it's going to be a surprise when you show up, whether it'll be a panel or a workshop. But the workshops are generally led by 1 PI, sometimes 2, that are more of a hands-on activity, learning activity about that particular topic. Then we come to lunch. So as I said, lunch will be on the opposite side wall where you had breakfast. And here we really want to encourage people talking with each other. So one way that we've tried to encourage that is when you registered, there was an opportunity for you to sign up for a particular topic table. Peer mentoring, project coordinators, projects from large universities and so forth. You see that in your agenda. You see those 12 or 13 different topics. Now, you're not obligated to stick with whatever you signed up for, as if you remember what you signed up for. But we would encourage you to sit at a topic of interest. All right, paying attention once again. We have assigned or asked a couple of volunteers, lunch discussants they're called, where they will be strategically sitting at various topic tables to help encourage conversation. So if you're an introvert like myself, who can sit at a lunch table for an hour and a half and not speak a word to anybody, we want to discourage that. So we've seated it with some people that hopefully are compelled to be talkative. We don't know that they are, but if we've been told that they're in charge of that, then maybe they will get out of their comfort zone. So here's a map of that. You'll also see this, I believe, in your handout, maybe not. But here are all the topics 1 through 13. The blue tables are the open tables, meaning you didn't commit to any particular topic. So just remember, when you walk into the lunchroom later today, there will be signs on each table that says, here's the primary topic that we hope you will talk about. We obviously can't enforce this, but just encourage you to do the best that you can to sit with people that you'd like to talk with. After lunch, we go to our first poster session. Now, all the posters are set up now inside the poster room, but only half of them will be staffed during poster session A. So these are the odd number posters. So if you're mapping out your day and you say, I want to see posters X, Y, and Z, pay attention to whether it's an odd number or an even number. Breakout Session 2, go back to a combination of workshops and panels. Now you're going to have a strategy, or you need to pick up a strategy on how you go between what sessions you pick. So there's really 2 primary strategies that I would recommend. One is you pick a topic that you're interested in. The other is you stop at the first room that you can find. Now we're about to the 5 o'clock time frame, and it's the second poster session, the even numbered. So we started at 8:15 today, or 7:30 for breakfast, and we've had these 2 breakout sessions, the 2 poster sessions, the lunch and networking, a variety of activities. I think this ends, about 6:15, somewhere in that neighborhood. So next step. So a number of people we'd like to thank. We've had a STEP Central Advisory Committee all year. We've met virtually 2 or 3 or 5 times. So we thank them for their insights and help throughout the day, or week, year. STEP Central team in particular, we want to thank Dan Udovic, who is reluctant to come up and talk sometimes. So Dan is the inspirational motivator behind these STEP meetings and has led it for, as he said, since he was a young child. Last 4 or 5 years at least. And then Tanya Siemens, also behind the scenes. You probably received lots of emails from her, and she sort of runs STEP Central and issues all those kinds of emails that come out. So she's just fabulous to work with and very helpful. So that's Tanya. And then also Claire Strawn and Callie Bean. Callie Bean is an undergraduate student at the University of Oregon. She is our social media expert, meaning she knows how to tweet. And so she actually tweets and updates the Facebook page, the STEP Central, on a regular basis. And once again, thank you to all of you. We counted up all your various roles as presenters and session moderators and lunchroom discussants and scribes and so forth. And at least 1 out of every 3 of you has volunteered to do something. So the old strategy of if you haven't volunteered, look to your neighbor and look to your other neighbor, and one of them has. So I don't get to introduce the keynote speaker, but I do get to introduce the introducer of the keynote speaker, so I'm excited about that. Susan Singer is probably still be relatively new, last month or 2, Division Director of DUE, Division of Undergraduate Education, which sponsors the STEP program and many others. And so she will be introducing our guest note speaker. So thank you much.
Good morning. I think one of the most wonderful things about the way this meeting has been put together this morning is that you get a chance to see all the different elements that it takes to really change the way STEM education is occurring in this country, from the challenges that Joan offered you to the wonderful experiences all of you are bringing here and sharing with each other, right down to the logistics of how to find the Lincoln Room, which actually is a pretty important thing to be able to do. And there is another really key element to all of this is how do we move beyond the work that each of you and parts of your institutions are doing to change at the level of whole institutions and change across the country. And that's why I'm particularly delighted to have the opportunity to introduce President Eduardo Padron from Miami-Dade Community College. I think he's the epitome of the kind of leadership that actually is making a huge difference at the institutional level, nationally, in his case, even globally. And his accomplishments are so many that and Minnie was going to have to continue to refer to my list so I don't misrepresent any of them, but I'd like to give you a flavor of this really remarkable individual who first came to the U.S. as a refugee at the age of 15, has a PhD in economics from the University of Florida, and since 1995 has provided incredible leadership as the president of Miami-Dade College, where there's been an incredible culture shift there. And just to give you a sense of his accomplishments, right, he's leading the largest institution of higher education in the country. There are 174,000 students at Miami-Dade. Mind-boggling for someone like me who comes from an institution with 1,800 students, and it seems like a lot as they tromp across the stage at graduation. But he's been recognized in so many ways in terms of what he has done to really elevate Miami-Dade to a level of national prominence. And in Time magazine has named him one of the 10 best college presidents in the United States. He's been Floridian of the Year in 2011. The Washington Post has named him one of 8 of the most influential college presidents in the United States. And in 2011, he was awarded the prestigious Carnegie Corporation Centennial Academic Leadership Award. In 2012, and it's quite a list already for 2012, he received the Citizen Service Award from Voices for National Service. He received the TIA-CREF Hesberg Award for Leadership, the Aspen Institute Ascend Fellowship, and the list just goes on. I mean, this is a truly remarkable individual, and he's reached out and provided his leadership in a very broad context. Right? He's the immediate past chair of the Board of Directors of the American Council of Education. He's the past chair of the board of the Association of American Colleges and Universities. He serves on the American Academy of Arts and Sciences Commission on the Humanities and Social Sciences. So he's out there making a difference, not just at Miami-Dade, but nationally. And he has been asked and served on national level posts by 6 of our American presidents. So again, just to give you a flavor of his leadership in that arena, in 1993, President Bill Clinton recognized him as one of the foremost American educators. President George W. Bush nominated him to the National Institute for Literacy Advisory Board and the National Economic Summit. He represented the U.S. at UNESCO's World Conference on Higher Education at the invitation of the Obama administration. And President Obama appointed him as chairman of the White House Commission on Educational Education for Excellence for Hispanic Americans. He's received global awards also from Spain, from Argentina, from France. And I think what really resonates with all of us in this room is the work that he's done at Miami-Dade. And I suspect many of you are already familiar with some of this work, but he's been credited with engineering a culture of success that has had really impressive results in terms of student access, retention, graduation, overall achievement. Sounds just like the STEP goals to me. Miami-Dade enrolls and graduates more minorities than any other institution in the United States. Let me say that one more time. Miami-Dade enrolls and graduates more minorities than any other institution in the U.S. And it includes the largest number of Hispanics and African Americans. He's nationally respected for his advocacy on behalf of underserved populations in higher education, and his in-depth research report, A Deficit of Understanding, that really highlights the funding crisis that threatens access for low-income and minority students. He's been very involved with the AAC&U Greater Expectations National Panel that re-examined baccalaureate education in the U.S., the Woodrow Wilson Foundation's Commission on the High School Senior Year. More recently, he's co-chaired the Century Foundation's Task Force on Preventing Community Colleges from becoming separate and unequal. And he serves on the National Commission on Higher Education Assessment, the CFR Task Force on U.S. Education Reform and National Security, the National Governors Association Advisory Group for College Completion Initiatives, and the ACE Blue Ribbon Panel on Global Engagement. You can read about President Padron in all sorts of places. He's been acknowledged in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the NBC Nightly News, Time Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, CNN, the Chronicle of Education. The list goes on and on. I could tell you a lot more about the incredible accomplishments of President Padron, but I think, like me, you're anxious to get on and hear what he has to say about what we can all collectively do to move forward with the very good work that all of you are engaged in. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Padron.
Thank you for that overly generous introduction. At some point, I'd like you to introduce me to the person you just introduced. I'm going to remove this from here in just a second. Thank you. This may well be a case of an introduction that is longer than the speech. And let me first say good morning. And I hope you all had breakfast, because there's nothing worse than being in front of the hungry of the audience. And I have to say that I never cease to be amazed every time I come in contact with NSF, how they always try to get the latest technology for us, how they make sure that they emphasize diversity. And when I came early in the morning to try the microphone, I realized that these people are incredible. They even provided me with this microphone with an accent. And we have to be proud of NSF. They really know how to do things. I apologize. In addition to the accent of the microphone, I have a little bit of a cold, so let's manage. Before I start, I'd like to ask Scott to stand. Stand and face the audience. There should be no question that this man is in the wrong field. I'm just amazed that Comedy Central, not Step Central, that Comedy Central has not discovered him. So let's give him a big ovation that he expected. I'm very pleased to be here with you today, even though the cold weather doesn't agree with me. I come from sunny Miami. When I left yesterday, it was 74 degrees, sunny. But I love Washington, D.C. This is a great city. But before I get started, I think that I want to express appreciation to several people who have been instrumental in the work of STEP. And I don't speak for myself, I speak on behalf of all of us, because I want you to know that we really appreciate what you do. This program is making a big difference at our institutions, and we don't take for granted your efforts, the energy you put into that, and your ability to bring us together to really share good practices and more. First, I'd like to thank the Education and Human Resources Directorate at NSF, and in particular the Division of Undergraduate Education, as well as the staff of the American Society for Engineering Education, who have worked overtime to ensure a smooth event for all of us. And of course, the members of the 2013 STEP Steering Committee, and particularly Dan Udovic, who for his efforts in organizing this gathering. And thank you, all of you, for your great work. I think it's safe to say that I will be preaching to the choir today. Those of you in this room are the pioneers leading the way toward a new era of STEM innovation in our country. What you are doing and what we accomplish as a nation in the STEM field is absolutely vital. The nature of global strength is changing. And more than ever in the 21st century, it will reside in knowledge and innovation, as you all know. I want to talk about a range of forces at work at our institutions and our country as we move forward in the STEM fields. The fields themselves cover an immense range of disciplines and careers. Your undergraduate majors at your various institutions stretch from the interiors of neuroscience and human genetics to the footprints we track through environmental and earth science. and as far as our great eye can see, we search the heavens via astronomy and astrophysics. The Department of Commerce leads no fewer than 66 STEM undergraduate majors and nearly an equal number of career paths. The research undertaken by those of you here and at institutions across the country will address all manner of innovation and scientific exploration. We will address the diseases that have stolen years of life from too many people, and the science that will continue to transform societies around the globe, as well as the collaborations we establish, will link our programs much more closely to the industries that drive our economy. That we are here today is evidence of steps in the right direction. But the honest truth is that we are behind, very behind. And while I am optimistic of the first degree, and a great believer in the values and virtues of this country, we need to ask ourselves what we value. Our capability is not in question, but we need to open our eyes to the challenges we face. These challenges begin long before we decide how much money and energy to devote to STEM projects. You may be aware of the recent death of a great American pianist, Van Cliburn. In tribute, last week the New York Times ran a front-page photo of Mr. Cliburn at the age of 23, just after winning the first international Tchaikovsky piano competition in Moscow. In the photo, he's sitting across the back of a convertible, waving to tens of thousands in New York City ticker tape parade. The year was 1958, and yes, we threw confetti in those days to honor Virtuoso, who was not an athlete or a movie star. I have nothing against athletes or movie stars. But what about artists? And yes, great scientists as heroes of our society. Most of you are much too young to remember the Ed Sullivan Show. In the days when we had 4 or 5 channels on the TV in the living room. Ed hosted singers and dancers and comedians, but he also invited great inventors and scientists to the show. He would have a wonderful chat one week with Francis Crick and James Watson about the discovery of the DNA double helix. Weeks later, he would be shaking hands with Dr. Jonas Salk, conversing in front of a national audience about his breakthrough polio vaccine. In those days, everyone knew Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe, but there wasn't a school child, day laborer, or chief executive who didn't recognize Albert Einstein. So now you know how old I am, and that might be a little nostalgic. But it's more than nostalgia that concerns me when it comes to the direction of the country. Every 3 years, the OECD, the Organization for Economic and Cooperative Development, a collaborative of the world's most advanced nations, conducts an evaluation of the education levels of 15-year-olds in some 30 nations. It's a well-respected barometer that has challenged the fundamental notion of superiority in our country. Despite much evidence to the contrary, we have ingrained in our American brains that we are number 1, numero uno, in all regards. Well, the result of the latest international assessments, as much as you know, indicates that America's 15-year-olds are nowhere close to number 1. They rank 14th in reading, 25th in math, and 17th in scientific knowledge, and among those 30 leading nations, we don't look good. We have a great computer animation program at Miami-Dade College, but I fear our children are spending far too much time on Call of Duty on the Xbox. Once again, the question arises, what do we value? It wasn't long ago that our students at every level were light years ahead of the rest of the world. It wasn't long ago that the percentage of the U.S. population holding a college degree was double the runner-up nation. Today, as President Obama made clear in a policy speech, the U.S. ranks 10th in the percentage of the population holding a degree. The interesting statistic is that our 55 to 64-year-olds are still leading the world, but those aged 25 through 34 are trailing badly. And the problem isn't video games. These performance measures coincide with a steep downward slide in state funding, the primary support for public education. Since the late 70s, you would be hard-pressed to find a single state in the country that has not significantly decreased the percentage spent on education over that period. The results vibrate up and down our education pipeline and across every discipline, especially STEM fields. I can cite a long list of additional and very alarming data. I sit on the board of the Council on Foreign Relations, and that body saw fit to offer a report that stated that our country's lack of educational preparation was nothing less than a threat to our national security. When it comes to the condition of American education, and particularly in STEM fields, we're in the midst of our Sputnik moment. Back around the time of the Ed Sullivan Show, the Russians beat us into space with a satellite called Sputnik. The country was in shock, and our leaders were galvanized. The U.S. space program was soon landing on the moon and regaining superiority. In this case, it took a second-place finish to wake us up to what we valued. We're here today because of the America Competes Act, administered by NSF Undergraduate Division, with the aim of increasing the number of students achieving associate and baccalaureate degrees in STEM. I am proud to say that Miami-Dade College is a recipient of a Type 1 grant through this program, making engaged scientific research a reality for students in their freshman year. Here's a brief overview of where we stand on federal STEM funding. Through the reauthorization of the America Competes Act in 2010, the National Science and Technology Council was formed and charged with developing a 5-year strategic plan to advance the state of American STEM education. Overall, the federal government today spends more than $3.5 billion on STEM projects through 13 different agencies. The Council's Fast Track Committee has published an inventory report seeking to eliminate redundancy and identify synergies across funding sources. President Obama has proposed federal support to generate 10,000 new engineers and over 100,000 new science teachers for our middle and high schools over the next 10 years. Let us hope that our representative in Congress find an alternative to the now famous legislation known as sequestration. All of our newfound inspiration to reclaim a leadership role in innovation in STEM will undoubtedly be compromised. Cuts are in the works for grants from NSF, National Institutes of Health, NASA, and the Department of Defense and Energy. Each is expected to finalize cuts within the next 4 months, so it's wait and see for the moment. Wait and see what we value as a nation. But let us keep our optimism for this moment. All indications, apart from the deadlock in Congress, point to a righting of the STEM ship. There is ample good news, particularly for those students participating in STEM research that are looking toward graduation and the STEM job market. According to the renowned Georgetown University Center on Education and Workforce, STEM employers will provide about 2.4 million new job openings through the year 2018 as part of an 8 million person STEM workforce. Almost all of these jobs will require post-secondary education. Most will call for a bachelor's degree or better, though about 1/3 of the STEM jobs will be available for those with associate degrees. And when it comes to earning power, most associate degrees in STEM out-earn bachelor's degrees in non-STEM fields. The STEM advantage holds true all the way to STEM master's degrees out-earning non-STEM PhDs. In fact, STEM majors earn more than their colleagues in just about any field that they choose to enter. But the Georgetown Center is also very cognizant of the deficiencies in educational preparation of which I spoke earlier. Those deficits show up in the chronic shortage in STEM competencies that are in demand in STEM occupations and non-STEM as well. About the time President Obama announced the call for 100,000 new science teachers, the New York Times quoted an emeritus engineering professor from the Universities of Illinois, Dr. David Goldberg, on a topic he called the math science death march. After discovering new enthusiasm in middle and high school for STEM subjects, experimenting with erector sets and microscopes, students are confronted with something altogether different in their first year of college. They find themselves too often in huge lecture halls with hundreds of students and a hail of facts and formulas in calculus, physics, and chemistry. That youthful momentum is suddenly lost, and many switch to other majors or wash out of the school altogether. The Georgetown Center's research tells us that it takes 5 high school students with top quartile math scores to produce one STEM worker. Something has to change, and I hope you would agree. Many of you have been fortunate to engage in research early in your academic careers. And as faculty and support staff, you have invited your students to the projects that brought you here today. Miami-Dade College is definitely not a research institution in the traditional sense, but faculty-student research projects are happening on a regular basis, and they are changing the lives of the students in ways that lectures in massive rooms never could. You may have seen another New York Times article with the heading, "Why Science Majors Change Their Minds," followed in parentheses by "It's Just So Darn Hard." Well, no doubt the courses and the research are challenging, but something else entirely is going on here. As one former engineering student from Notre Dame explained it exactly right, his new double major in psychology and English offered a lot more discussion. The author of the Times article suggested that engineering courses were too narrow and lacked the passion of other fields. I do appreciate investigating reporting, but it's impossible to agree with the conclusion. And I doubt anyone in this room agrees that passion is lacking in engineering or any of the STEM fields. What is in question are teaching methods and the range of skills and understandings that our STEM students gain during their time with us. No doubt students need a strong theoretical foundation, but disappearing STEM students, I'm not Marco Rubio. No doubt. Now I understand. Now I feel sorry for him. No doubt students need a strong theoretical foundation, but the disappearing STEM students also need a new sense of engagement. Miami-Dade's Tools of Success STEM initiative has opened the door to project learning for minority and women students who know firsthand about passion for scientific investigation. Like so many of your STEP projects, they are engaged in learning communities, becoming adept with advanced technology and gaining from mentoring relationships. Most importantly, they are addressing real-world problems and experiencing the value of being a contributor in a larger sense of meaning. They are discovering what they value. Contrary to the conclusions in that New York Times article, being a scientist is anything but a narrow endeavor. Not long ago, the Association of American Colleges and Universities initiated a project called LEAP, or Liberal Education and America's Promised. ASEE commissioned the Hart Research Group to survey what employees really wanted from our graduates. Of course, this business leader wanted a level of discipline knowledge, but they were much more interested in people who could make things work across disciplines. They wanted what the researchers call 360-degree people. High on the employers' list were attitudes and values that included respect for diverse cultures, the ability to work in teams with diverse people, personal and social responsibility, and a commitment to civic engagement. Awareness of sustainability and the impact on their industry and on the environment, the ability to think critically, and the willingness to listen and communicate with clarity. At Miami-Dade College, we have a similar set of learning outcomes, 10 to be exact, that cross every major area of study. We see these outcomes as the fundamental knowledge and attitudes that foster effective citizenship and lifelong learning. As always, it comes down to what we value. As educators, we're ushering students through a time of profound change for our institutions and the very dynamic of teaching and learning. Despite my tendency to nostalgia, I've seen tremendous opportunities for students in online education. Miami-Dade's virtual college has an enrollment of 12,000 students. But now we have entered the era of the MOOC, those massive online open courses that reflect a virtual revolution in higher learning access. I am all for it. Access is the hallmark of the institution where I have lived for 40 years. For what we do and how we do it will always be a question of what we value. In the end, in STEM, we're nurturing not just scientists, but human beings. Perhaps there should be little difference. The relationships we forge with our students will always be at the heart of the learning dynamic. All the evidence about successful STEM learning tells us that this is a profoundly human enterprise, even in the era of the MOOC. Albert Einstein once said, "The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and all science." It really takes a 360-degree person, a real human being, to interact with the mystery and translate it into good for people and the planet. Einstein also said the difference between stupidity and genius is that genius has its limits. So it goes, isn't it true? And so it goes that we're living at a time of amazing breakthroughs and heartbreaking ignorance, one moment to the next. And we have in our midst the students, the only people who can make a difference and shape a better world. I wish you all the best in your noble endeavors. Thank you.
So, are there questions for Dr. Padron? There are microphones. Let's see, there's one here, and I don't see one over here, so.
This one's the one with the accent. That one doesn't.
That's funny. This one changes accents whenever the speaker comes up. That's pretty remarkable technology, yeah. So, yes, please come up to the microphone, and if other people have questions, please come up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Padron, for your comments. I really appreciate your comments on engagement. But I'd just like to comment that perhaps the next step in STEM education and undergraduate engagement is an international perspective. engaging our students in international experiences for the global workforce. So I'd like to suggest that that's the next step in STEM retention and the training of undergraduates.
Well, I totally agree with you. We live in a global society today, and I think part of what we need to do is to not only work with students from all sorts of backgrounds to be able to benefit. I mean, it's a give and take. And at my institution, we have students from 182 different countries. And if you ask me what is the greatest advantage you have at that institution, is having such a diversity. Because the way that students interact and learn from each other, not only in science, but in every other field, is a real plus. And I'm a strong believer in study abroad and exchange programs. One of the things that we need to make sure with the immigration reform is the ability to keep here the students that we educate with masters and PhDs who later on go to their countries because we don't keep them here and compete with us. I think that talent traditionally in this nation has been a source of what we are. If you look at all the patents and all the inventors and all the inventions in this country have been from people who came from somewhere else. The day we stop doing that, we're not going to be the nation that we have been. And I think it's important for us educators to make sure that in the work of the immigration reform, that becomes a very important part of it.
Thank you.
Dr. Padron, I'm one of the Sputnik generation science people.
You saw the Ed Sullivan show too?
Yeah, I did.
Good.
And the Beatles.
The Beatles, oh!
But I'm wondering, one thing I've noticed in our students over 30 years of teaching is decrease in the ability to concentrate or give attention or to be engaged in the subject matter. Do you have any solutions to that work in a multicultural situation?
I think when the students are properly engaged, they give you all the attention you need. The problem is with the new generations, they have so many different ways in which they learn that they're very different from when I went to school. And the key is being able to allow them to use those mechanisms to learn and be engaged in the process. I see at my own school, those students who are engaged in the learning process are retained at a much, much greater degree. They accomplish more, they graduate more often, and it's a matter of them seeing a meaning and a sense of value in what they are doing. There's no secret answer to it because we, with the opening in today's society, when not just the elite goes to college, but everyone goes to college. What we don't fail to realize is many of the students come and bring with them a set of circumstances that makes it very, very difficult. The majority of my students cannot afford to be full-time students or just go to school and not work. They all have to work in order to sustain themselves. And they have families to support. And they have a lot of other concerns. So education has to be more meaningful. At the same time, they know that the real passport to a better life, to the American dream of middle-class status, is that college degree, is that learning that they get there. So you have forces that are competing with each other, and the institution has to create a culture of possibility and a culture of success that will allow these students to feel comfortable and will feel meaning in what they are doing. Thank you.
Since you have a great minority population, how is your teaching and learning methods different from maybe institutions that cater to predominant minority groups?
Yeah, we are basically almost 90% minority student body. We have, I think if you ask me, what is the source of my great source of pride and what makes that institution really work is the faculty. It's a faculty that has really embraced that diversity, and a faculty that is representative of that diversity. It's a faculty that is truly committed to the success of the students. It's creating a culture of success where failure is no option, where the students know that the institution is there to help them. You know, in the very beginning, if you all remember, we have been too much part of that philosophy of the right to fail, swim or sink, and making the transition to a philosophy, a culture of the right to succeed. There's a big, big difference. And making that transition and getting the faculty to understand is one of our greatest challenges. But it has to also come from the top. You have to practice what you preach. The administration and the leaders of the institution have to support faculty, has to make sure the faculty has the tools to be able to do the things that they need to do. So it's a combination of factors. There's not a single thing. And, you know, hopefully you work all of that to a happy ending.
Yes, I truly enjoy the statement of value. And as you were pointing out about Ed Sullivan, that he had scientists on his show. As we know also, the country will not move in the direction of education unless it values it. What are your ideas concerning the increase of public awareness such that we might value the issues that you have preached to about today?
Well, you know, I recently traveled to Korea, and I couldn't help being amazed as how our teachers perceived. You know, they are called nation builders. That's how they refer to the teachers in Korea. And what difference does that make? Because people have faculty teachers, you know, in a pedestal. They're very important. We have, especially in the last few years, I know that the academy has a lot to do and a lot to change. You know, we are the most important industry of the 21st century, and we're still working in the 20th century. And that something has to change. We have to come into the 21st century and really transform our institutions to be able to be in keeping with you know, what's going on in the world. But at the same time, the bashing of the profession, the bashing of teachers that has taken place, you know, we have the problem that in any other profession, if you're an accountant, an engineer, if you are whatever else, you know, if you have a heart problem, you go to the doctor. If you need to do your taxes, you go to your accountant. If you want to build a house, you go to the architect. Okay? In the teaching profession, is the one where anyone who ever went to primary school is an expert. And they all know the solutions, they all know how to solve the problems. They all know how to solve the problems, including our legislators. And at times like this, part of the problem is, as always happens, when they don't have money to send you, they send you a lot of regulations. So they are regulating us to death. They are micromanaging the academy. And it's not a good situation at all. It's very disappointing and very frustrating. But you know, we cannot give up because it's the most noble profession. This is the kind of thing that we are doing this because we care and because we really believe we're passionate about it. And I know that we will emerge victorious in this period of transition, but it's tough. So I'm not trying to undermine, you know, the task at hand. Thank you.
President Padron, I think we all are very appreciative of your dedication and your words today in terms of the importance of STEM. I'm almost loath to admit that I too stem from the Ed Sullivan generation, and I think that entire era sort of bespeaks of an era when innovation and entrepreneurship was really a core part of our culture. And I wonder if you could comment on sort of invention, innovation, and entrepreneurship as it relates to universities, and what are the challenges that you think we put in our own way at universities for stimulating this? There's obviously a number of initiatives around innovation and entrepreneurship, but what are the key things that universities should do, can do, and how are they perhaps not seeing all of that around innovation and entrepreneurship?
Well, first of all, let me acknowledge that our universities in this country are unique. The level of research, the level of invention that our American universities have produced in this nation, it is just the envy of the world. So let's start there. The problem is that it's very constrained. And I really feel that the task at hand, at a time when we need every citizen to be educated, we need, let's face it, what can you do today as a citizen with just a high school diploma? You flip burgers at McDonald's or Burger King. Nothing wrong with that. Yesterday I had a McDonald's and Big Mac, no problem. But the fact is, you make very minimum wage. You cannot support a family. You cannot, join middle class status. You cannot. It's very different from 50 years ago, when we could all go into factories and offices doing manual work and still make enough money to buy a home, put your children through school, stay in a job for 30 years, and go with a pension and have a good life for the rest of your life. Those jobs are gone. They are not there anymore. More than 2/3 of all the new jobs that are created today require post-secondary education. Between May 11 and May 2012, 96 of all the jobs that were created in the United States require a college degree or some kind of post-secondary credential. So college is important, but we need to make sure that we make opportunities for that type of creativity, innovation, getting involved in producing the next generation of scientists and the next generation of inventors and people with just great ideas, and again, not just in the sciences. It's what the universities have to do, is open up. It cannot be a special building over there where the researchers are and nobody knows who they are. It has to be part of the entire enterprise. It has to permeate. It has to become contagious. So students today find meaning and find opportunities to harness their own potential.
Thanks for your impressive remarks, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm so proud that actually two-year college president is here to give remarks at the STEP Grantees meeting. One of the practical challenges STEP PIs all experience is engaging the senior administration at their institutions. Especially majority of the senior administrators at two-year colleges do not have STEM background. It's impressive that you have economics background, that you are very much engaged in this. How could we engage them in a meaningful way to run our project? Because it seems like many of them just don't care. And you got the money, you run it, and let me know kind of attitude. How could we encourage them to pay attention to the project and then direct us or guide us to do better, in your opinion?
Well, I cannot speak for others, but I can tell you what I do. I elevate the people that are doing this kind of thing. I bring them, we have a monthly board meeting of trustees, and at least half of the meeting is dedicated for them to understand what our faculty, our researchers are doing. We bring the students who are working in the projects, we bring the faculty, and they make the presentation. We give them a lot of publicity. We make sure they go on television and radio programs, and that they are exposed, that the community knows and values what they are doing. Because in fact, they are doing very important work, and it's not patronizing, it's not tokenism, in fact, it's the essence of what the institution is, because I see it. When students get involved with this faculty who are working in projects, and we have 2 or 3 outstanding members of the faculty of the college here today, and I'm so proud of them because that's what they do. And you talk to their students. I don't have to talk to them. I talk to the students, and they tell me what a difference being in those classes make. Because in fact, even students who, I have a case of a student just yesterday who didn't want to go to college, just went because his mother insisted. Went into developmental, didn't pass the basic skills test, reading, writing, and mathematics. Well, that student, one professor make all the difference in the world. He never planned to be scientist, he never planned to go into take science courses. Well, today he just graduated, he took every single science course to the most advanced in chemistry, physics. He has transferred to the university now, and is doing research. He's the only community college student to have been his work published by I forgot the name of the association, but it was a big deal because he was the only presenter from a community college, and his research is being published by the research association that invited him to present. And just because he found a member of the faculty who really transformed him, who really got him engaged and showed him the way, that's what makes a difference. And so many of you, again, I'm preaching to the choir, so many of you are real examples of that transformation through the work you do. What you do is extremely important, not only to your institution, but it's important to this nation if we're going to keep the position of leadership that we have. So if anything, we should take our hats off to you and be able to recognize you for the work you do and the contribution you make. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, President Padron. Yeah, accent and attitude, right? What a combination. So I want to just say, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dan Udovic, by the way. A couple of things that strike me from what Dr. Padron had to say. First of all, in talking with him and his staff about this community and what this community would want to hear, it was impressed upon me that Eduardo has this passion about liberal arts, and that he really wanted to make sure that that speaking sort of beyond the sciences and beyond STEM was okay with this group. I said, yes, by all means. I would like to say that I think a sort of a sub-theme of this meeting, from Dr. Padron all the way through Uri Treisman, who will talk tomorrow, through your sessions, should be that humanity that underlies the numbers that we're all trying to reach. We focus on numbers in STEP. That is the criteria by which our programs are evaluated. But each one of those numbers represents human beings who bring to the table their experiences, their values, and their aspirations and hopes, and it's our job to bring those to fruition. And so beyond the numbers lies the humanity, and behind that lies the importance and significance of this 360-degree person that Dr. Padron was talking about. I personally think that the best practices that you're going to be working to identify during the meeting that relate to best practices in increasing numbers, and the best practices, evidence-based practices, if you will, that relate to creating the 360-degree person don't need to be different, that they fundamentally are very similar to one another, and that the way to increase numbers is to recognize that that you can only do it one number at a time. So with that in mind, as we go to our break, we actually do have quite a bit of time for your break. So I encourage you to be networking. Watch the slideshow as you're going by. You'll see students from your own projects, all of whom we recognize as significant to our own work. So wait a second. Wait.
There are coat racks available outside. May not know about.
Scott, in addition to bathrooms, Scott also is the person who's responsible for telling us that there are coat racks outside for those of you who want access to them. Oh, and by the way, the other comment I wanted to make about Dr. Padron's talk is that we've been thinking about whether or not STEP Central is the right name for our website. We've been talking about, I was spending time with Lee yesterday talking about expanding outward and what the STEP community needs to do in order to be thinking more outwardly. Comedy Central, too, strikes me as just about right. And again, thinking about those interconnections, maybe it's not the reality shows that are bringing the scientists and engineers onto their programs, but Jon Stewart sure as hell does. So Comedy Central has something to say for it. All right, see you in your sessions.